Caribbean, States, Canada, who are majoring in degrees that do not matter to the real world. If you give me your degree, I'm going to ask you, what can you do with that? Don't just pay to come here to learn. You need to get a degree that has some functional utility in the real world, because when you get out of here, you're going to have to pay those student loans back. See, when y'all had the Fees Must Fall movement last year, I was here. And I had a chance to speak to some of the students at some of the universities at the Cape and Fort Hare University. And I said the movement to keep the fees down was good. But you got another issue greater than that. Even if the fees stay down, you have to make sure you can get a job after you earn your degree. The fees is one thing, employment is something else. And if there's one thing white folks do, is they manipulate our love for learning into a financial hustle for themselves. You see? So in America, even here, you have thousands, millions of African people in student loan debt, masters and doctorates, and cannot find work. I'm not discouraging you away from your education. I have 6 degrees myself. Okay? I'm not discouraging you away from it. But make sure they are relevant. Being a school psychologist is relevant. Being a school principal, that's relevant. Being a therapist, that's very relevant. You have to make sure it is relevant. Don't come to the Durban Institute of Technology, Steve Biko campus, and study European art history. What the hell are you going to do with European art history? It got to be relevant. See, the university might offer 100 degrees. Only 30 matter. You have to find the ones that matter. Because universities are about money. They are businesses. And they are in cahoots with the banks of Durban to put you into debt in the name of higher education. So you have to be wise as you walk this road. But there's another thing. Whatever you study, don't content yourself to have a career working for the white man. Or the Indian. Or the Chinese. If you're coming here to study medicine, open your own hospital. You're coming here to study education, open your own school. You're coming here to study pharmacy, open your own pharmacy. My sister's a pharmacist. You're a social worker, start your own social work practice. But don't content yourself working for non-African people. Because slavery is not the absence of education. Slavery is not the absence of education. Slavery is the absence of control over your life and income. You can study slavery and you'll see a lot of enslaved Africans were very well educated. Very well educated. It wasn't the want of learning that made them slaves. It was the lack of power that made them slaves. White supremacy and black oppression, that's a power relationship. It has nothing to do with ignorance. You can know more than the white man, but he controls the power because he controls the resources. Which is why apartheid may have fell in 1994 on paper. But in practice, it is still pretty much the law. Slavery ends in America 1865. African people own 1/2 of 1% of all the wealth in America in 1865. That's 150 years ago. Today, with Oprah, LeBron, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Kanye, we still only own 1/2 of 1% of America's wealth. A century and a half later, the black percentage of America's wealth ownership hasn't even shifted a 100th of a percentage point. Up until 1994, the whites of South Africa owned 90% of your wealth. 2015 today, they still own 90% of your wealth. And what the media has done through mind manipulation is convince you to equate freedom with democracy. They say you are free because you can vote. Freedom is not the ability to cast a ballot for two pre-selected puppets of the power structure. Freedom is not the choice. Freedom is the right to choose the options. You choose between the selected options, but you don't determine what those options are. And this is why your struggle in South Africa, like our struggle in America, ain't over. In fact, it really has just begun. That was practice. Now it's time for the real struggle. But in order for that struggle to be successful, you have to work through certain contradictions. You have to kill the energy in you that makes you feel superior to brothers and sisters who are not at this university. Because if you cannot do that, you will be one of the black bourgeoisies of South Africa. And Lord knows you have enough black bourgeoisies in South Africa. In fact, the new face of white supremacy is a black face because the new racism, the new racism is to make it look like there is none. And how do you make it look like there is no apartheid? You put black people in front. And by doing so, you confuse black people as to who's making the decisions. In America, we have Barack Obama. And when Barack Obama got elected, black folks celebrated. They said, our day has arrived. They were dancing in the streets, shook it. They said, we free now. And I sat in the back. 8 years ago, the only scholar in America of notoriety who said this, in the end, will be a curse and not a blessing. Other scholars said, how can you say that about the first black president? I said, well, first of all, let's deal with that statement. President Obama is not the first biracial president. He's the first one who could not hide the fact that he was biracial. George Washington had an African grandfather. Thomas Jefferson had an African grandfather. Calvin Coolidge, Abraham Lincoln, Andrew Harding, and several more. He ain't the first one with a white mama and a black daddy. Many of them had it. He was the first to hide. But beyond that fact, I knew Obama's administration would prove to be a curse to Africans in America. Why? Because when you study the ascendancy of black politicians, I don't care if it's South Africa, I don't care if it's West Africa, I don't care if it's Canada, London, or the Caribbean. The more black elected officials we get, the worse our condition becomes. But let me explain why. It's not that the black politician is demonic. That's not the issue. It's not that President Zuma don't have the right intentions. It's not that President Mbeki didn't have the right intentions. The problem is they were financed by the power structure. And the hand that pays is the hand that rules. So no matter how well of a job I want to do as President Zuma or anyone else, I cannot do it if I got to go to De Beers to get funding. My checks are coming from Oppenheimer. I got to go to the banks that finance apartheid to finance my party. How do you get free?
You're not free.
So you never overcome this until you separate your agenda from the pocketbook of your oppressor. See, that's the thing we never dealt with in the black freedom struggle. Because one of our issues in the black freedom struggle, even as sincere revolutionaries, many of us still want to be multicultural. Any multicultural organization will only take you so far. If they are not unapologetically African, if they are not race first, as the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey said,